What's up everybody, Tom here with another video. Well, what another interesting day on the stock markets. Hyper stocks again attacked. At the same time, we see the value, old school stocks holding through. We'll be taking a look in this video at our technical analysis levels for the S&P 500, NASDAQ, dollar index, ARK, Bitcoin and more to try to find out what's going to be happening next and whether this rotation is about to start ending. Stay tuned. All right, guys. Well, heat map to start off with. What happened yesterday? Hyper growth stocks and just growth stocks in general took a little bit of a hammering. Apple, Tesla, Amazon, all down. And you notice that mostly the stocks that were down were the ones that did well. Semiconductors also getting beaten down on the day, with Nvidia leading the charge 3.15%. Looking at the sectors, instantly you will see that the indices, being the Russell 2000 and the NASDAQ, were down for the day. That did draw down the SPX and the Dow Jones. But when you look at the actual sectors inside those, it was really just technology, consumer discretionary, and then things like materials and the other ones were all barely down in concept. Now, this is the same story that we've been seeing. Basically, financials and energy since November has been the big pick. But wait, there's more, because now the mass media is writing about it. And we all know what that means. It's about to end. We've always maintained 3 to 6 months for energy stocks and financials in the recovery value phase of this first stage bull market recovery. However, now that we're seeing the media talking about it and even drawing little articles like this where they're pointing out the fact that energy and financials and materials and industrials are doing well, I do believe that we're getting to the end now for those financial and energy moves, or at least it's going to be very, very quick when it changes, possibly now only a month. When the media gets hold of something and makes it perfectly clear to everybody else out there in the markets, that's what's going on. That tends to be the time that you want to think about it a little bit more clearly and say, okay, now everyone knows about this. We're not 2 steps forward in the market anymore. We're now behind or with everyone else. And that tends to be the time when it all stops and then we go back into the other ones. I'm still very bullish on infotech, healthcare. These 2 sectors, I think, have a lot to run in them in the future. And I also like industrials, but materials are very hot. Financials have had a great recovery, and energy is getting to that peak in my thought process. There could be a little bit more in there, maybe 10, maybe even 15%, but it's certainly getting to the end of the stage of the values picking up. Let's take a look here at the earnings for the week. We've got Splunk and Okta and Snowflake after the close Wednesday. We saw Fubo have a pretty good result that put it about 8% up. Zoom also had a good result this week, as we talked about. So will Splunk, Snowflake, and Okta also be able to get some good results through? Time will tell. We'll take a look at it tonight live on the charts, of course, 10:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, about 3 hours before the New York Stock Exchange opens. Come join us if you're interested. Let's get into the TA now. VIX Volatility Index 24.1, up 3%. So it was up, and we did see a little bit of selling in the US 500 and the NASDAQ. Nothing to write home about, nothing to be scared of yet, but that was what we were seeing. Dollar index declined after getting up to the 91.2. It didn't hold a daily really very, very high here. Notice this point. It didn't hold any daily close strong, and that makes me think we need to see more from the dollar index. If the dollar index continues to rise, let's say bust past this high up here, not only will we go back into this resistance, but we should hopefully break through it. And it's all eyes really on non-farm payrolls this Friday, a very important key economic bit of news in the US. As dollar index is failing, at the same time, Bitcoin's also coming under pressure. And I think this is just because of the amount of bullish movement that Bitcoin's had. It's in consolidation. Yesterday, it closed underneath the 48,000 and then it's quickly recovered. And now we're trading at just underneath 49. It's a good sign if it continues to hover around this area. We do not want it getting too far back down below these points, because then it triggers into 45 and 44 and we're in some serious trouble. And I may expect Bitcoin to possibly just do some consolidation for now as it tries to find its next movement up or down and resets those indicators that will be heavily overbought, such as RSI, stochastic on the larger timeframes. Silver's another interesting one for the silver squeeze guys out there. Very nice recovery yesterday. I'm looking for it to get through this 20 moving average to then signal that we can move back up to the 2780. And that is a bullish hammer, there's no doubt. So bullish pin bar rejection off the trend line that's been holding so many times. Look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The dollar index falling was a great catalyst for this. But now I just need that little bit of extra confirmation above this zone, above this line here that's sitting at about 26.87. We close above there or even get a few ticks above there. We should be able to move to the 27.80 and show that silver is back in town. Nice close, a little bit more. Hopefully the bulls get back into that one. Let's go to gold. What's going on with gold? Closure underneath 1764 triggered some flash selling. It then went just above 1700, which is of course that psychological zone. It's bounced up. I'm not won over by gold moving up right now. I think it's still probably short. It really depends a little bit on dollar index and what goes on there. The only reason it rallied was because dollar index fell. If we continue to see a decline, I would think this 1675 previous support, previous resistance, and the trend line on the way up will intersect with each other and become a very interesting level to look at. But like any of these flash kind of crashes, try not to catch the falling knife because the trend is down right now with a series of lower highs. What we want to do is we want to wait for stabilization, some form of structure to be maintained on a good time frame like a 1 hour or a daily or a 4 hour. And when we see that break above and close, then we can say, okay, gold's found its base, it's thought about this level, and we don't get stuck in a really bad position. I know you guys don't want to be in bad positions, so that's one of the ways that I've learned over the years that can help us. Now, I want to talk about ARK Fund today, and mostly just because I think this has been a sustained effort on hypergrowth stocks. We know ARK, of course, loves Tesla. Tesla's being beaten around a little bit, and so are other hypergrowth stocks such as TDOC, etc. And we scroll down in here and you'll notice that from peak to trough right now, let's have a look at how much it's gone down. We'll get our ruler out. So where it stands, it's actually down about 16.48%. Now at its lowest during that flash crash, it went to around 20% down for the fund. So could there be more decline coming into ARK? You can't really do the technical analysis here, even though it came back up and it tested what was previously a support buying as resistance. It's more about looking at some of the bigger holdings in the fund. And Tesla, of course, is one of those. At the moment, we have a series of lower highs coming through here on the 1 hour. And if we do fail to hold this level, and I'll show you what this level is, it's the 660 zone, and we break close below that, I'm a little bit worried about what's next in store for Tesla. The bulls have been buying this zone nicely. We need to start breaking above that 740 area to show that the strength is back in here. Then, of course, you're going to struggle with 800 previous support and when the closure happened. But there are some signs here that Tesla is a little bit weaker than some people would expect in the market. Yesterday wasn't down that much, yet Tesla still fell 4.45%. There is a sentiment break change happening here. And I believe if we get through 660, that could trigger selling down to 600. And then every single $50 after that is going to matter for Tesla. In the longer term, I don't think that I'd be very concerned about it. We were having a discussion on the channel about this yesterday and how many good things that Tesla do have in the pipe. But that doesn't mean that a hypergrowth stock can't decline a little bit more. So if we start to break underneath those last lows, then we put pressure on the 600 again. This could be where it all ends. And if it doesn't, unfortunately, that 450, 500 could be on the cards. It's not unusual for when a stock becomes out of favor with Wall Street or with just a little bit of sentiment change for these types of stocks to fall down. We've seen it all before in Tesla before. It's lost well over 50% of stock value and then recovered heavily. So even if it comes down here, remember, have your sentiment, have your ability to go, okay, I believe in this company or I like this company. And if you do, these types of opportunities can present and they can be very, very good for you. So here's the NASDAQ. What's going on here, guys? Well, we've got a series of lower highs coming in. We broke above those. Then we came and tested just underneath what I would call the critical zone. The previous peak over here, previous support, previous little bit of support, resistance, etc. around this 13,367, that was unable to be breached with the 200 simple moving average, the green line above it. Then we have a look at what happened. Tech stocks came back down, hit this level, and then they've kind of bounced around this for now. This is the 13,098. For tech stocks, it's really about the 12.8 for the NASDAQ. If it closes underneath there, it exposes the 12.2 and 12,000 level, possibly even down to the 11,000 if we get a more sustained sell-off. And for the bull side of tech stocks, we need to get above this zone, which will trigger moving back to not only the all-time highs, but most likely the 14,000. One of the things I say on the channel all the time is, can we proof a channel or proof an area? We've now got a support, a resistance, a support, a resistance. It's fair to say we probably could take this movement and look how it proofs to the 14,000. So the bull side we get through here, 14,000 looks to be in the books from a technical side standpoint. SPX, interesting close, actually a new low. So what we have here is we've got a peak, we've got a trough, we've got a lower peak, and then we've got a lower trough. This is a technical lightning bolt change of trend. Now, when you have something like this, it's a pretty good symptom of, especially on the SPX or the SPY, the real markets trade, it's a good idea to pay some attention to this. And that's because this type of zone here is showing us weakness in the market. It's showing us that the market's considering levels and starting to put pressure on the downside. 3860, I would expect possibly to come in through the futures. If it does, then this zone here will be where the bulls try to regain control. A closure underneath 3860 is going to now expose 3800. There's not much kind of buying pressure that I expect through to the 3820 or 3800 zone here. You can see the previous supports. Every time it's gone through, it's gone quickly down to these levels. So these are the zones, and for the top side, 3930. A resistance break above that area is going to trigger buys and most likely into the 4,000 area. These are my key points that I'm looking at every single day in the market. The futures are a little bit more interesting. We've actually got wick rejection, big short off, and everything revolves around this strange zone here, which is the 3868. I'm not going to pay as much attention to the futures. As I've told you before on this channel, they can often be manipulated, but interesting to see that buy rejections here on the US 500, followed by a big bearish candle, but no closure underneath. All of these stories again tell that 3860 kind of ish zone. We move underneath back to the 3820, 3800. The same story is being told here on the futures as it is on the real market. I wish everybody the best this week. Of course, good luck out there. Come join us live. We'll be going live 10:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to join us about 3 hours before the New York Stock Exchange opens. It's been a lot of fun, and I love having you guys there. Bye for now.